Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Julia and I film all sorts of content from food reviews to useful tips and tricks that can make the quality of your life better. Today I have an interesting topic to talk about. I know I always say that. I always say all the topics are interesting. But I think what I should say is a useful topic to talk about, because I'm sure this is something that affects each and every one of us. And the topic today is about how to make better decisions. How many of us can actually sit down and say that they trust themselves to make the best decision in your life? I think that should be the starting point. How do you rate yourself with decision making, and do you trust yourself? Or can you clearly say that, I don't trust myself, I'm going through a season where I'm not making the best decisions, so I just need a bit more help or some tips to be able to make this process a bit easier. And that's the aim of this video. It's definitely the best feeling to be able to feel that, you know what, I am able to make the best decisions for myself. I actually trust myself to make decisions. So it's also important to affirm that in yourself, that you actually trust yourself, and you'll find that energy will pour out and you'll have more confidence that yes, I am able to make the right decision. Even if I walk around, ask people what to do, ask for advice, I am still able to take all that information and make a good decision for myself. What can I say about decision making? Like, there are years behind me where seasons where I wasn't making the best decision. And I'm so thankful not all those decisions had very dire consequences, but sometimes I look back and I'm like, why? Why did I make that choice versus making another choice? I used to be able to make decisions quickly and easily, and mostly because either the decisions were not that big or I wasn't taking time to think much about what it meant. But as life has happened and I've started suffering the consequences of my decisions, I've realized that I need to be able to think through things a bit more so that I can make good decisions and also be fully aware of what's happening. And even if the decision is not good, at least I'm fully aware of what the consequences of that decision is. And when that happened, to be honest, I think I started becoming a bit indecisive at some point. I'd find myself taking long to make a decision, or overthinking. I think overthinking is just probably the worst thing for me, when you're supposed to be making a decision but you're just thinking of all possible scenarios in your head, and now it's becoming this whole thing, yet it was meant to be something very easy. So yeah, I'm glad that I lived and I learned, and I'm probably at a better place to be making decisions. And I know I'm not always going to make the best decisions, but at least I'll make decisions that are well thought out, and I can be comfortable and say, you know what, yeah, I'm confident that that decision came from me. I wasn't influenced, and I really thought about it. Your values are the thing that are going to guide you when you're making decisions. What do you believe in? How do you think life should be? These are the things that will guide you when you're looking internally and you're trying to make a decision. These are the things that will point you in whatever direction you're supposed to be taking. So just to get straight into it, I'm just going to point out a few things that you can do to help you make that decision-making process much easier. The first thing is take time when making decisions. I think we need to stop getting ourselves to a point where we feel we need to rush to make a decision. We feel we need to make a decision there and then and on the spot. When I say take time, it doesn't mean that now you get into a mode of postponing decisions or taking long to make decisions, because at the end of the day you have to make a decision. Sometimes when you're taking long, it becomes procrastination. That's no longer you struggling with a decision, you're simply procrastinating. You have to bear in mind the timelines that you have. This decision, how long are you being given to make it? How long are you giving yourself? What other constraints are there? And if there is no timeline as to when you're supposed to make this decision, you need to devise your own timeline to say that, okay, by this point, I should have made this decision, and that will give me this amount of time to really sit down and decide and think about this decision and see what the best way forward is. Another reason why I really like the idea of taking time for yourself to really think about a decision, it's because during that moment of isolation and to yourself, you do get a nudging feeling that gives you a direction on what to do. Say for example, you're supposed to make a decision and you kind of know the direction that you want to take. Taking time for yourself to just keep thinking, it will kind of nudge you and tell you whether this is what you should do. It becomes like a reaffirmation of what you should do, and you'll see what side you're leaning more towards, because you'll get a nudge to be like, do it, or a nudge that says don't do it. That's also good because you really get to listen to your inner voice and see what the best thing is. To sit down with that decision and internalize what the decision is, isolate what the real issue is in this context. When you're trying to make a decision, you need to make sure that you're clear on what it is without taking on external factors. Like if you're supposed to make a decision about moving to another country, the issue is moving to another country. The issue is not what this person is going to feel about it, how I'm going to cope, how are you going to do this. It's simply deciding whether it's a yes or no. The other thing is to really be in check with your emotions and make sure that you're not making a decision when you're extremely happy, extremely sad, angry, and you can be able to get yourself to a level point where you're not at an extreme of any emotion. The reason why you need to take time to be in check with your emotions is because when you receive the news that you're supposed to make a decision, there'll be that first emotion that you feel, and you need to get yourself out of that state of being in an extreme place and get yourself in a neutral place where you can be like, okay, now I'm in a better place to make this decision. In my opinion, that place of being level with your emotions is what will make it easier to make a decision that is well thought out. And like I said before, whether the decision is good or bad, you just need to be able to have a clear mind when you're making that decision. The next thing is obviously to weigh out the pros and cons. You need to be able to sit down and list the good and the bad of this decision. That's just, it's as real as it gets, because once you have a clear picture of what this decision means in both the positive and the negative light, you'll be more inclined and drawn towards the direction you're supposed to take. And also just so that you're aware of what this decision means if something goes a positive way or if something goes a negative way. The next thing, while you're trying to decide what to do, is to gather as much information as possible. I am currently a strong believer in information is power. If you do not know anything, if you do not have the knowledge, how are you supposed to make a decision? And it's good to do your due diligence when you're trying to make a decision, to just step away and be able to go and research and find out what you're dealing with. Is there any other external source that you can get information? Is there information that you're missing out on that you don't have that will be able to make you be in a better position to make that decision? You have to be able to sit with yourself and be like, when I made this decision, I did as much research as possible. I tried to leave no stone unturned, so I am comfortable with the outcome because I know I tried my best to research. Always find out, always dig deeper, just so that you can get as much information as you can to be able to help you make a decision that is best at that point in time. The next thing is just being able to bounce this decision-making process off someone else. There are two ways to go about it. You can either go to a professional or someone who has gone through this situation before, and you've seen them or they've told you that they've gone through this, and they're able to take you through what that decision means and what it looks like practically. So when you're going to this type of person, that you're trying to get some guidance in some way of what you should do, because you've got either facts or you've got an example of what it means when you're in this particular type of situation. The other person you can talk to is someone that can be a sounding board for you. Sometimes when you're trying to make a decision and you're just in your own state and you're thinking about everything and processing everything, you might be too caught up in your thoughts and you won't be able to see other perspectives of what a situation is, or you're not able to look at yourself in the mirror to be able to see what's looking back at you. So you need to speak to someone out loud, talk to them about what the decision is, what the choices are that you have, what it means to you, And sometimes when you do that, when someone is a sounding board to you, you're able to see things in another perspective, and you will get some clarity as well. You will see what that decision looks like on the outside. Something to note with this is there are decisions where you probably need someone to point you in a certain direction so that you can be able to make it. But there are other decisions where it needs to come from you. Nobody can make that decision for you. As much as people would want to help you out, you really have to be the one to make that decision. And that is when it's important to have a sounding board versus someone who's telling you what to do. Because, like I keep saying, are you going to be able to sit with yourself and be like, this is a decision I made by myself? Nobody told me to do this. Nobody directed me or manipulated to do this. I made this decision by myself. And you need to think about that so that you don't burden the people around you, like your friends, your family, or whoever you're going to talk to with, oh, you're the one who steered me in this direction. No, you still need to realize that this is your own decision to make, and you need to take responsibility for that and not use the people around you to help you make decisions, and then when things don't go the way you wanted them to go, you start blaming people. And even after you have spoken to people who can give you some guidance on how to make a decision, it's still important to take some time to yourself to really make sure that whatever advice you've gotten aligns with what you think you should do or what you think is the good choice to make at that point in time. Another thing that you can do when you're stuck in the middle of decision making and you cannot decide what to do is to look at that situation from a third party's perspective. Assuming you had a friend and they were in this particular situation and they were coming to you and they're going like, I need advice, what should I do about this? What would you tell that person in that situation? Like, think of what you would tell them to do, and then think about your situation and think, does the advice I would give a friend or someone who comes to me with this issue, is that something that I would do? And sometimes you might find that you're overthinking a situation that has an easy answer, but because it's you and you're feeling so much pressure to make a decision, it makes it a bit harder. But maybe the answer is much more simple than you think. So when you think of it from a third party's perspective, you're able to take off the pressure of yourself and get yourself to a point where you're able to make that decision with a bit more ease. You know, something that I've come to realize in life is, I know some decisions are outrightly bad and it's clear that this is a bad decision, but there are other decisions where you never know whether that is a bad decision or a good decision up until you make it and you go through whatever experience that you're supposed to be going through. That makes it even harder because you try and think, research, think of all possibilities, and you're just sitting down and you're thinking, is this a good decision? But sometimes you just need to take the plunge and do it. Do whatever that you're thinking. And this is when a gut instinct comes into play, because when you're completely stuck, what's your gut telling you to do? Like, what direction is your gut telling you to follow? Because you can't forever be stuck and you're seated there and you're just thinking, what should I do? You've tried to ask everyone. You know, those situations where you ask your friends, you ask your family, you ask people, you go through it over and over again, and it's like, okay, enough of this, you just need to make a decision. Just listen to your gut when all else fails, to be honest, because your gut will give you direction. Sometimes it's really hard to be in tune with your gut because you're not able to trust whether it's a voice in your head, it's something that you're imagining, or this is a clear direction of what should be done. But if you can get in tune with your gut, it's also a really good way to make that process a bit easier. The last thing I think you should do when you're trying to make better decisions is to really look at the consequences of all the choices that are possible in that situation. Look at everything that can possibly happen, and this includes the positive and the negative. The reason you do this is to make sure that you are fully aware of what is going to happen after you make that decision, at least the things that you have knowledge of, because sometimes there are unintended consequences that we don't know anything about. Just make sure that you're fully aware and that you're okay with those consequences. At the end of the day, it's how you will feel after. I think the best thing when it comes to decision making, especially when you've made a decision that is not so good, is to be able to say that, you know what, I knew very well what the consequences are, and as much as I'm sad that this is happening, I'm not entirely shocked because I looked at every perspective. We'll go through seasons where we're just making bad decisions, and it's not necessarily because we don't know what we're doing. Sometimes you need to make those bad decisions because it's a journey that you're going through in life, and trust me, you'll get to a point where you're more in tune with yourself and the things that you really need, and you'll start to make better decisions. Anyway guys, that's all I had for today about decision making. I hope that this makes the process of decision making a bit easier, something that's broken down into a process that can be a bit more simplified. And if you have any other suggestions on how to make the decision making process a bit easier, please put them down below in the comment section, and I'll see you guys next time. And also, please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Bye.